All right, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of TwoBytes podcast with Chris Bigler and John Dell. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, John, and excited to finally hit the record button. How are you doing today?
I'm feeling really good. Obviously, we've been talking about this for a long time. It's great to get together and actually put it out there, and hopefully, people find this helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just a quick review of what we're going to be going over today. We're going to be going over some quick Excel features that maybe are underutilized or people can find some value in. I'm going to be talking about the analyze data command in Excel, and then John will be talking about XLOOKUP. But before we jump into content today, John, why don't we step back and just talk about why we're doing the podcast, what we're excited about, and what we hope some people can get out of it.
Yeah, I think ultimately, when you and I talked about this, we really try to take a look at disarming tech in a way that technology changes really quickly. You and I both work and sort of live and breathe this, but a lot of the workforce, a lot of our customers, a lot of the people we interact with, it can be overwhelming. So I think goal number one is you and I said, hey, is there a way to just distill these into very short bursts? And more importantly, I think, and this is something that we really talked a lot about, is two perspectives. Because I mean, we titled the podcast Two Bites, two different professionals that work in this world. We wanted to each offer our own perspective on a very specific topic. And I think there's a lot of value there because, Chris, I'm sure you've worked with this a lot and you've seen a lot of technological challenges and all sorts of different opinions. And it can be difficult, right, to determine what's best for your specific application.
Absolutely. Yeah, whether that's tools or just philosophies in terms of implementation and how we want to approach these things, I think you nailed it. Disarming the tech and kind of the overwhelming initial feeling when you look at implementing different solutions or tools, but then also being able to get those differing perspectives. John and I both have similar but different backgrounds in terms of how we got to where we're at now. But I think both of us provide really unique perspectives and can provide a lot of value in terms of what we've seen throughout our years in the industry, and both on the tech and the business side.
Yeah,
John, do you
big
kind of want
point.
to talk about your background a little bit and then current work and what you guys do at Elevation Data?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So my name is John Dell. I'm the CEO of Elevation Data Group. We're a boutique data services and data management firm. Primarily, we focus in healthcare and dental in particular. And really, my life is all about data. So I've got an MBA with an emphasis in information decision systems, and I've got certifications with AWS in the solutions architect sphere, and also with Tableau. And really, for me, it's about making data applicable. And when I say that, because data is everywhere, you can use data, you can use it for all sorts of purposes, but a lot of times it doesn't really work for what you need it to work for. And so our firm's philosophy, and certainly mine, is not so much about the data, but how applicable you can make it, and how you deliver it, and how you train on it, and how you steward it, that helps the business. So really, that's my passion and where I come to this podcast with in terms of experience. And Chris, how about you?
Yeah. So I was CTO of a dental supply company, Scott's Dental Supply, for about 4.5 years, but I'm now the CEO and founder of a business called Foundation BI. And really, what we do is provide fractional CTO services to small and medium sized businesses in the industry to give them more affordable access to high quality implementation plans and different scoping projects that maybe they feel like they want to do for the business, but just don't know how to get started with those things, or feel like they have the resources in house. I think typically you would need to go to a large consulting firm, which charges a really big fee for those sorts of things and may not be affordable for a small business. Or you would have to go out and hire a full time CTO, which for a business, when you talk about the cost of the salary as well as benefits and all that other stuff, it can get really expensive. And so I've seen in the industry that most of these things are pretty project and temporary based in terms of, hey, I want to get a new website spun up, or hey, I want to
Mhm.
get Tableau spun up. And so I need to prep my database in order to do that. So I really got my background in user experiences on the website of things. And then really everything that we do is data driven as well. So very similar to John, where we're both really passionate about the data side of things. I think that drives everything we do, hence the business intelligence portion of the business name. But yeah, that's the kind of minute elevator pitch about Foundation BI and where we're at and what we do. So,
That's so important too. I mean, I think you made a really brilliant point in that there's a lot of every business, no matter how big or small you are, you're always going through a transformative process. And especially some of
mhm,
those small to medium businesses right now really have to become more sophisticated just to keep up with the world
right.
today. So I think it's really important. And I'll tell you, Chris has got skills well beyond sort of in certain areas that I have no familiarity with. So I will tell you, I think you guys will get a lot out of him because he's kind of the person that I'll reach out to when I'm not sure about connecting all these things together. So data is wonderful, but you've got specialized systems and they've all got to talk, communicate, and work together for your overall holistic business, strategy. So I think that's where Chris's expertise is going to be particularly helpful. So again, I won't. We're going to cover hopefully a multitude of topics, but I think in essence, I'm really excited to partner with him on this because he's got a lot to offer.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, why don't we just jump into it, John? As I said, you're going to take over XLOOKUP today. So why don't we just talk about why it's used and how it's important and relevant for the audience?
Absolutely. So XLOOKUP is an Excel formula, my favorite Excel formula. And really what this is all about is XLOOKUP helps you bring data from different sources or maybe different sheets or Excel sheets into one place where you can get either new insights or just answer really some basic questions. Because the truth is not all of your data is going to be available in the same place. So you've got to blend this data in. That's what we call it in our world, is data blending, where we bring it all together and use it for analysis. So XLOOKUP is really, really cool. So some of you may be familiar with VLOOKUP. That was kind of the older version of this. And if you didn't know that XLOOKUP was around, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised because it's a huge enhancement on VLOOKUP. But if you've never heard of either of those, I think that after we get through with our quick demonstration today, this might be your new favorite formula as well because it is so applicable. So this is going to be a very much a high-level course, just a very quick demonstration of this, and we try to put this in practical terms. So what we're going to do today is put on your hat, right? We're going to pretend that we are really a business analyst that's working for a company that sells products. And we're going to have a couple of business intelligence questions we have to answer. So I think it's going to be a fun, but again, very straightforward. We're going to keep this pretty simple. We can always expand on it a little bit later. So let me go ahead and share my screen and get this all set up for you. And Chris, can you see me okay now?
Yep. Got it.
Perfect. Okay. So again, we're business analysts. We've transformed. We've got that hat on right now. And as a business analyst, you might be very familiar with reports that look just like this. Okay. This is a zip sales revenue report. So you can see it's got all the important details: where you sold your particular product, which product you sold, what quantity, and at what price you sold this product at. And it also tells you the date and some good information, what sales rep, what sales manager. And this is great. This is a very standard report, but it only tells you your revenue figures, right? So it only tells you what you sold and for how much. But we've got a different task. We've been told by our supervisors that we need to really examine profitability for these particular products. And you can see this report is not going to give us the information we need to really determine how profitable we've been. So again, I've got access to different data sources, so I'm able to run a separate report here, this one called item reference. And you can see this is just a wholesale cost listing. I've got my item code in here, and I've got a unit cost. This will tell me what I paid for the product before I sold it to my customer. So this is what we need. This is our missing component for profitability. And as I'm looking at this, again, my analyst hat is on, and the little gears in the brain are starting to turn here, and I'm seeing other information that is kind of interesting. So I've got product line and I've got categorical information, and I'm thinking, well, geez, if I can also integrate this information to my sales report, I can actually look at sales and profitability by category and product line, and that'll give me a much deeper and more rich experience. So I've got two data sources here. I need to make one, and that's where we're going to use XLOOKUP to do. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to my zip sales report. This is going to be the basis for my report, and I'm going to start bringing data in. So as I do that, I'm actually going to create some empty columns here because this is where I'm going to populate some new data. And I'm going to mark these as blue just so I know that I brought this data in. And I'm going to call one of these unit cost, and I'm going to call another one extended cost. These are going to be what they are. And then I'm going to have gross profit in dollars, okay? And then I'm also going to have gross profit in percentage. So let me just update this. So these are the figures we're going to have. And I also, like I said, I'm really curious about that category function. So I'm just going to go ahead and add another column, and I'll just put it over here. And I'm going to call this category. And I'm just going to plan on bringing some data into that as well. So all that being said, I've got my placeholders. I think I'm pretty much ready to roll on this. So let's jump through how this formula works. So if you're familiar with Excel formulas, you start each one with an equal sign, and then you're going to type the name of the formula. In this case, XLOOKUP, all one word. And as soon as I hit that open parentheses, now Excel knows, number one, I'm going to do a formula, and it knows that I'm doing the XLOOKUP formula. And you can see it's going to give me my cheat sheet, which is all the components I need to make this formula work. And if you're looking at this and you're not really comfortable with formulas, don't get too worried. It is a longer formula. There's 6 components. But the good news is only 3 of those components are required, and that's what we're going to focus on today. It's just the first 3, make it real simple and easy. We'll try to break it down easy. So let's see here. XLOOKUP. One of the things that we need to talk about first, before we even get into this formula, is all about common fields. So if you're going to look up to another report and try to blend in this data, you need what they call a common field or a unique identifier. In this case, in our report, we'll see, and let me back out of this real quick. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. You'll see in this item, and in this particular use case, I'm going to use item code because you can see I've got item code in this report, and I've also got item code in this report. So that's going to give me a solid field. It's a unique ID, meaning one item code equals one item, right? There's only one system of truth there. And I'm going to use this field as sort of our key when we look back and forth and join this data in. So that's an important feature that I should have mentioned before we started the formula, but that's where we're going to start here and get this going again. So again, I'll be back to XLOOKUP, and now my formula is ready to go, and Excel saying, okay, your first component is, what are you looking for? And again, that's going to be our common field. I'm looking for this item code right here in column C, row number 2. I'm looking for that item code. I'll hit a comma, which is going to separate and move me to the next component in our Excel formula. And this is lookup array. What this is really asking, it says, okay, now I know what you're looking for. So where are you looking for it? So now is when we go to the next sheet. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to look for that item code I indicated, and I'm going to look for it in this sheet, this item reference sheet, and specifically, I'm going to highlight all of column A because my item code could be anywhere in this column, okay? Then I'm going to hit the comma, and you can see here my formula is still showing, even though I'm on the other sheet now, it's still showing. It says, okay, that's your lookup array. What's your return array? What does that mean? It means, okay, I know what to look for. I know where to look for it. But if I find a match, what do you want me to bring back into your other report? So in this case, again, I'm going to highlight, I'm going to sneak this cursor in here, and I'm going to highlight all of column D. So this tells me now, I said, look for this item code in column A of this sheet, and if you find a match, bring back whatever is in column D. That is all I need to make this formula work, okay? So I'm just actually going to hit the closing parentheses and hit enter, and you'll see Excel will bring me back to my zip sales report, and I've got the wholesale cost baked right into this. So I can go ahead and copy that formula down, and now I've got an entire report. In this case, you can see here that I've got over 36,000 rows in this report. It's all done, and I've merged all the unit cost in there automatically. So that's really the power of this formula, is it creates a referential array lookup that just allows you to grab this info and blend it in seamlessly, of course, across any reporting size, really. So if you have 10 items or if you've got 36,000, it works just the same and very, very efficient here. So I've got all the cost figures I need. Now, very quickly, I do want to just talk about the remaining optional components of this formula. So we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but I'm going to reactivate this formula. And you can see here, we handled the first 3 components. The next 3 are completely optional, but they're kind of important if you want to use them. They give you a lot of flexibility. Next component is if not found. This is error handling. So for example, if I look for an item that was not in the item reference sheet, what do you want Excel to do? By default, it'll say not applicable. It'll give you that code back. But you can also hard code in a specific value if you want, or you can even nest in a lookup to another sheet. So it really allows you a lot of flexibility that the old VLOOKUP formula did not have. And it's baked right in here into this optional component. Then you've got match mode, which just says, how do you want to search for this item? In this case, it'll default to an exact match, which is probably what you want in most of the case. And then search mode. Do you want to search the other sheet from top down or from bottom up? And that may seem not important, but in certain scenarios, maybe you've got multiple years worth of pricing, you may want to control which way you're actually searching for a match. So again, those are optional. We won't spend any more time on those today, but I did want to mention them while we're here. Okay, so I've got my unit cost. I'm going to very quickly just make an extended cost here, which is unit cost times quantity. I'm going to calculate my gross profit, which is going to be my extended selling price minus my extended costs. And then I'm going to calculate my gross profit percentage, which is going to be my gross profit dollars divided by my extended cost. Okay, and I'll make this a cute little percentage here. And now I've got a whole report ready to rock and roll with all of my gross profit figures. And I didn't do that correctly. So let me make this just a little bit bigger because it didn't want to grab it. Okay, so now I've got all the figures I need, but I still want that category. So let's go through this XLOOKUP one more time very quickly. XLOOKUP, I'm going to look for this item code, comma, and I'm going to look for it in this sheet, and I'm going to look for it again in column A. That's where I'm going to find my item code. And if I get a match, I'm going to bring back whatever is in column G. That's going to be my category. Again, I'm done. So I'll just hit enter, and you can see seamlessly, I've now brought in product category information for all of this. So now I've got one data source here, a brand new data source that combines data from two different data sources. And I can now build a real robust profitability report here. So for example, and I'm not going to go deep into this because this isn't about building pivot tables, but I think it is worthwhile to see if I did want to build a pivot table now. I have all sorts of figures. I don't have to look at it just on item code. I can look at this and I don't, by category, I can see my total sales. I can look at total extended costs, and I can calculate these. I can get my gross profit dollars in on this. I can take those two features out. I can break this up by year, which I wouldn't be able to do if I just had one of these pieces. So there's a lot of information that goes into some of these more complex reports, or when you want to ask those second, third level questions. And that's where XLOOKUP really shows its power, is you don't have to have everything in a particular report. You could have 3 or 4 different reports. You could bring them all together in Excel very easily, very quickly. And it also works especially well with what we call scratch data sessions, right? These are areas where you just want to experiment and go looking and start answering your own questions without having to build a more formal report in, say, Power BI or in a more advanced SQL query or something like that. So that's XLOOKUP, very, very broad look. But Chris, I know we're going to provide some data sets and also some cheat sheets for that formula as well that you could use to practice this on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you touched on some really important things. And then even at a high level, I think the reason that we wanted to look at Excel today is from our experience, like so many businesses, no matter what the size, are using Excel for their data analysis and that tool. And I just wanted to touch on a couple things as well that I know is extremely useful for the XLOOKUP is that kind of the why of like, well, why wouldn't I just copy and paste that data in there, right? And then do an analysis or a pivot table. And I think when you get in these environments where it's really important to keep that source data or that source of truth intact with those specific sheets or files, then this is where XLOOKUP really shines, right? Or maybe you don't have edit capabilities on a document, and you could reference that document without changing the source of truth there. But I think you went through it in a great fashion and really rounded in that kind of what, where, when, or sorry, what, where return function. What am I looking for? Where am I going to get it? And what am I returning back? Are those 3 key points that you absolutely nailed, and I think will be super useful on the data aggregation and data blending side for people. And then you worked right into the segue of the pivot tables for me and the analyze data command. So if it's okay,
this is a whole
I'll
other
just
level though. If we're talking about
yeah.
Excel, right, you're about to kick it up a notch, which is cool. It's okay. I'm okay being the simple guy, right? Like you said, we're going to give you any use case. Once you start playing with this data, the sky is going to be the limit. But I think what you're about to talk to is a much more sophisticated way of handling data. And I think that, honestly, I think this is the future of how most normal users, maybe people that aren't data trained or technologically inclined, are going to work with data in the future. I mean, and the future really is now. So I'm really excited about the analyzed data stuff you're going to cover now.
Yeah, well, the advanced stuff is nothing without the infrastructure and the simple portions. So we need all of it to make it all work. So I'll go ahead
Good. I
and
feel
share my
better now.
screen
Thank
here.
you.
And we'll jump into the analyze data command for Excel. And so to kind of start, John, can you see the screen?
I can. Yep.
Cool. We'll talk about why the analyze data command is so important for a lot of people. And I think really what it provides is one is accessibility. You'll hear me probably harp on that a lot throughout the course of all the episodes. Is that something that's really important to me? Is how accessible is this tool? And so it's free for all Office 365 users, and it really excels in being able to provide one-off analysis or very simple summaries. For the data sets that you're working with. So as John and I alluded to, we both have pretty extensive backgrounds in Tableau or Power BI, which are incredibly powerful tools. But like John said, if you're just doing some experimenting or some scratch data stuff, then Excel is always king. And so being able to do that simple summary and simple analysis there is a really key function of the analyze data command. And then I also think it's great for the report building and presentation building side of things. And so
Definitely.
this is kind of the first step to natural language processing and interacting with data in a different way. I think as we saw last week, Microsoft is getting ready to roll out Copilot for pretty much all Office 365 suite tools. And that will kind of be the evolution of this. But this is kind of where it starts and a simple analysis of it. So without further ado, we'll jump right in. And we'll start here by clicking the upper left corner to select all our data. And then under the Home tab, you'll see on the far right, we have the Analyze Data command. So we'll click that and we'll let Excel work through it a little bit here. It may take a bit. We have over 805,000 total data pieces. And so
And this is the same data the same foundational data that we used
Yep.
for the XLOOKUP example, right? Just a larger data set
Exactly.
of that. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct. So this is the zip sales report. So again, kind of just document level. Okay, what did we sell in what area? Who was the rep responsible for it? And then who's the sales manager in what region? All that kind of stuff. So first step here is we'll just get kind of a standard table of top products. But as you see with the analyze data command, you have a prompt up at the top where you can just start typing. You also have some suggestion questions, which I absolutely love because sometimes you want to do some experimental analysis and maybe we don't know where to start. So Excel will say, hey, let's look at percentage of total reported extended cost for each description, which would be each item name. Or what is the region for the city, ABSECON, and give you some really quick insights there. And then they even give you some visual examples as well. So what we'll start with is just a standard table. So we'll go top 10. And then where this works really well is you'll just need to know what header or what column you're referencing, and Excel will be able to do that. So you'll see as I start typing DECS, you'll see description prompted because it knows based on this data set, that's a field that we're going to want to pull. So top 10 description by reported extended cost. So that's going to be the extended cost all the way through. So we'll hit enter here and then insert pivot. And then you'll see, okay, just like that, we have a real quick top 10 product summary for that sales file. And so we'll kind of quickly jump through all of these, but you start to get a glimpse of instead of using formula language, now you're just doing natural language processing or just talking to it like you would a human, saying, hey, just give me the top 10 items by this field. And then it returns that, it understands it. And so the next one we'll jump into here is sales by month, which is a step further down the natural language processing. But we'll do reported extended cost by month. And you'll see I don't have a month suggestion or a month folder. But what Excel does is it sees the date folder or the date column in here. And it's able to say, okay, well, I know a month lives in that date field, so we'll sort it by that. And so what we'll do here is hit enter, and you'll see it gives us a nice line graph. And what I love about analyze data is that it takes out a lot of the work to just get you to this point, right? I didn't need to manually create a pivot chart. I didn't need to do all that. So now I can spend all my time really on the formatting side, and saying, hey, I like the design of that better. We'll see, okay, well, with this axis here, we don't have any data from about 120,000 all the way down to 0. So we're going to change our minimum. And did I get my zeros right? Yes, I did. And then we'll add some data labels here. And then add a $sign. And you'll see just like that, it gives me just a really quick, clean chart that I can throw in a presentation, send over to my supervisor and say, hey, here's a report you requested. And all you're doing is just interfacing with the data in a very natural way. And so I think this really highlights the start of why these things are so powerful. And as I alluded to, Copilot will kind of be the full-fledged solution for this moving forward, where I know they're working to connect all of your PowerPoint and your Excel and your Word and Outlook tools together. So that way you could take something from Excel and just tell Copilot to export it into a presentation, and it'll do that for you. And so rabbit hole for another time, but I think these are some of the tools that analyze data can really kind of flex its muscles in, so to speak. So.
Yeah, and that is, I mean, there's so many amazing things about just this trajectory, right? And you saw this, and this has been around for a while, but you saw that a lot of the data prep techniques that somebody like you or I in the IT department or analytics department might have used to just prepare that data so that it works in a chart and it can break down in order by month is all done, right? AIs figure that out, and certainly some of these, Excel has found ways to better do all that grunt work for us, for lack of a better word. And so I think when people talk about Copilot and all the amazing advancements in AI, are we worried? I'm not particularly worried. I think there's more opportunity than ever, because I think it's going to allow everyday users to get really intimate with this data. And I think the job for people like you and I is going to be more about prepping and shaping this data so that it feeds cleanly into the AI so it can be used, and timely, right? There's all sorts of discussions about what we can do, but more importantly, I think it's going to empower people to make these decisions, kick off these reports instantly, embed it instantly, and stop taking so much time just to get it looking good and applicable. It's like half the job's already done, so it's really exciting to see. And what were you, 4 or 5 clicks and 2 questions later, you've got a dashboard you can shoot out. And any normal, person working, who's not going to want that? And I think everybody's going to say, wow, how much time did you spend on that? Oh, geez, hours. I mean, it was tough. I worked through my lunch, oh, cool. But no, it's there. It's approachable. It's really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that kind of concludes episode 1. But just wanted to say thank you again to John for hopping on. And I know we're both super excited to dig into some more stuff. We joke that episode 1, of course, has to start with Microsoft Excel, of all the business tools and technology tools that we could talk about, right? But I think we're going to get into some really interesting topics and discussions. And I have a lot of respect for everything John does in his career, and even him helping me out early in my career to get our Tableau interface and dashboards all set up at Scotts Dental back when I first started there. And so we go back quite a ways, but I'm sure we'll also challenge each other quite a bit too on certain topics and provide some unique use cases and talking points for maybe some more in-depth discussions than just Microsoft Excel. So,
oh yeah.
Thank you.
And
again,
I think
John.
thank you. I think if we can get nothing else comes out of this other than really just everybody knowing there's really not a lot of not many wrong answers, right? We're going to really try to say, hey, this is why it's good for us. This is why it may work in these scenarios and maybe not these. We'll probably have some good old fashioned debates when we get to the discussion of AWS versus Azure, right? I know that we sort of live in different camps there, but again, there's a lot of appreciation for the fact that ultimately this stuff just needs to work. And I think it works really well when used properly. So we're going to dive a little deeper into certain topics, but Chris, I'm thrilled to be here with you. I learn a lot every time we get together and start talking some of these topics. You always bring at least something I've never heard of before. And so I think I'm going to get just as much out of this as anybody else. So thank you for putting this together and hosting today. And we'll look forward to coming back for the next episode.
Absolutely. And for everyone listening, we'll be pushing this out to anywhere you get your podcasts. So Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube as well. There'll be video and audio there. So feel free to give us a like, follow, subscribe, all the fun stuff. And we'll talk to you soon.